StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is solving your unknown unknowns. I'll tell you what that means in a second, and of course we'll get to it in this episode. Before we do that, remind you of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week. All you got to do to be getting those is be part of my texting community, which is free to join. So text me at the following number, 305-384-6894. The message is on hiatus as of this recording, but once we start sending again, which will be in the near future, you'll be getting those messages straight to your phone as soon as we start going again. And by the time I announce that we're going again, we're already going. So that means you want to be in the community now. So just send a message now. We'll store your number. And then when we start going again, our bot will let you know it's coming and everything will be flowing from there. Again, that number is down below in the description. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where I do all my coaching. If you would like to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach, that is the only place that it happens. We focus on mindset, strategy, systems, accountability for performance, consistency, and producing results. All right, this is all about making sure everything's being held accountable, making sure that you are implementing and getting to your highest level when we're talking about what you're doing professionally, what you're doing business-wise. Anything you've ever heard me talk about on this show are things that I have and do coach people on. So if you heard something that caught your ear, something that you know you need to work on and get to, right now, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is also down in the description of this episode, or you can just type workonyourgameuniversity.com into your browser. It's pretty easy to spell. That out the way, let's get into the topic, which is solving your unknown unknowns. Now, today's masterclass is all about the things that are getting in our way and holding us back or not helping us move forward, which is the same as holding you back, simply because we are unaware. We just don't know what we don't know. Now, I talked about awareness before on this show. It's a very important attribute that we need to have. I talked about raising your awareness in episode number 2879 a couple months back. I talked about raising your self-awareness in episode number 2105, and I talked about awareness also back in episode 263. So this is something that we come back to over and over again because it's such an important thing from a few different angles. And attention and focus are two of your 5 key forms of investment. Awareness is a combination of both attention and focus. And today we want to talk about identifying and then solving the unknown unknowns. These are the things that you don't have awareness of, but you should become aware of. That's what these are. These are the things that when you find out about them, you'll say, damn, I wish I knew about these yesterday, last year, or 10 years ago. So no better time than the present since we can't go back into the past. So let's get into it. Point number 1. Topic, once again, is solving your unknown unknowns. Number 1, first of all, let's identify the things that you know that you don't know. All right, these are the things that you know that you're missing. So this is the person who says, well, Dre, I need to learn how to do this, or I need to know how to do this, but I don't know how to do it. So who can help me, or can you help me do this thing? These are the things we are aware of our own ignorance. All right, these are the things that you are aware that you are missing, and you need to fill these gaps. Maybe you want to launch a new course, but you don't know how to launch the course. Maybe you want to put together a sales funnel, but you are new at building sales funnels and you don't have the skill to do so. These are the things that you don't know can help you move forward, these are the things that you know could help you move forward, but they are things you don't know how to do. And at the same time, what I will say, here's where I'll fill in, is that these may only create marginal advances for you, because even though they do need to get done, and even though it would be beneficial for you to have the skill, it's not the main thing that you need moving forward. The main thing you need moving forward is something else that you're not even asking about. The reason is that the things that you know you don't know, stuff that you know you're missing, they're all based on your current level of thinking, because you couldn't know that you're missing them unless you thought about it, right? They're all based on your current level of thinking, and usually our current levels of thinking are not going to produce 10x results. The way you're thinking right now is not going to produce a 10x result for you. So, which means even if you get every question in your head answered, it's not going to produce a 10x result for you, because you can't think on a 10x level with the same level of thinking that got you to the 1x level that you are now. You understand that? 10x level that you want to get to is going to require a different type of thinking than the way that you're thinking now, because the way that you're thinking now is reflected in the way that you are living and behaving right now. You want to go to a 10x level, you got to think on the 10x level, and to think on the 10x level, your thoughts have to change. Some of your current thoughts have to be replaced with other thoughts. And that's not something that just happens at the snap of a finger. It can happen, but it doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. So even if all your questions got answered, it usually produces some marginal level result. Produces a result, but it's a marginal level result, which is not really what you're looking for. See, most of the time, it's not the questions that we have that need to be answered most urgently. It's the questions that we're not even asking that need to be answered. Those are the ones that make the biggest difference. But again, you would never think of those questions because they have not occurred to you. Again, this whole episode is about awareness, that awareness is not there. So all the things that you think you need to know but don't know, you can get the answers very easily, usually from a conversation or two or a Google search or two, and virtually may not even cost you that much money. This is not really a barrier to your next step forward. Let me tell you what is. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is solving your unknown unknowns. All right, point number 2 is about the unknown unknown. These are the things that you don't know that you don't know. So you're unconsciously unaware. You don't even know that these things are even happening. Your awareness has not even identified these things. Therefore, you can't do anything about them yet. Once you start identifying these, once you become aware of these and start doing something about these, that's when you can start to make big jumps. But there are some challenges to this. There's some challenges to these jumps. The first challenge is you don't know that you don't know something. Therefore, you can't ask a question that you are not aware that you should be asking. All right, it would never occur to you to ask something that, again, your consciousness and awareness have not identified yet. So that alone could be your problem for an entire lifetime. So let's look at it this way. Right, if I wanted to go to 10x the level of wherever I'm at in any aspect of my life, that's going to require me asking a question that my current level of thinking is not even aware of. I couldn't even consider the question because, again, my current level of thinking has not even touched on where that question, the plane that that question exists on. My current level of thinking is not there yet. So in order for me to get there, I have to, something has to stimulate me to start thinking at a completely different level. That can be another human, but it's probably not going to be me. So somebody can go through their entire lifetime never even considering some of the things that someone who's 10x levels above them is considering, is thinking about all day, every day. Everybody, you understand? So the person who is comfortable earning $50,000 a year, there are certain questions and certain thoughts that never occur to them that a person who's earning, let's say, $5 million a year thinks about all the time. Right? So it's not that one person is working that much harder or that they're that much smarter or skilled. It's just that they're thinking different. They're asking themselves different questions, which lead to different outcomes, and as a result of different answers. The good news is, because this could be a problem for your entire lifetime if you never get woken up to it. Good news is you have someone like me here pointing these things out to you. I'm identifying this issue to you. I'll also tell you how to fix it. See, the second issue with this point is that when something that was previously unknown to you and completely unaware of to you, or you were completely unaware of, when it gets pointed out to you, now you have a challenge. Want to know what the challenge is? Can I share that with you? All right, here's the challenge. When someone presents to you a brand new idea that, let's say you're 30 years of age, and I present to you a brand new idea, a brand new concept, a brand new way of thinking that you never thought of before. Here's the challenge. You've been thinking about this new thing that I just told you 5 minutes ago for all of 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, what is it competing against? That new thought is competing against your 30 years of conditioning of your old way of thinking. So 5 minutes versus 30 years. Question, which one's going to win? Which one's going to win the tug of war between the two? Because these two ideas are in conflict. You basically can't hold, you could technically hold both ideas at the same time, but one of them is going to have to win out. Question is, which one's going to win? The one you held for 30 years or the one you held for 4.5 minutes? See, usually what happens is the stuff that you've been thinking about forever, thought patterns you've already developed, those are the ones that you usually default to, your normal habits. Even when you see that the results of thinking that way aren't getting you what you want, you'll still think that way. You'll still keep thinking that way because, again, it's more comfortable to keep doing what we've been doing than it is to change. See, many times when someone is introduced to one of their own unknown unknowns, because their mind is not yet open to that change, they do nothing with the new information. They do nothing with the new awareness. They have it. They've been given the new information, so it has touched them, but it doesn't get burned onto the subconscious. It doesn't become something that is implemented because there are 20, 30, 50 years of thinking the old way. They're not willing to change that, at least not yet. They're not comfortable with that change yet. They rather stay on the beaten path that they've already been on. Many human beings don't change in life, not because they are incapable of change. Again, it's because people just don't. People are creatures of habit, and they rather stick to their habits of what they've been doing than to change their habits and do something different. It's easier to stick to your habits. It's easier to stick to your habits. Or in order for you to change your habits and do things that are outside of your normal way of thinking, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. Everyone understands the general concept of the comfort zone, right? We got the things we're used to, and if we want to make change in life, we got to get uncomfortable and get outside of our comfort zones. Everyone understands the concept. Anyone could explain that to you. Most of you probably could recite that to somebody. But the question is not, do you understand? The question is, are you willing to enact it? Are you willing to actually put this to work in your life? Remember that change is not just about what you do, it's also about the way you think. Because often, again, we don't change our actions without changing our thoughts. Usually, actions are a result of thought. If you want to change what you're doing, you got to change how you're thinking. You got to ask different questions to change your thoughts. Thoughts are just a Q&A session that's going on in your head at all times. Sometimes the questions are provided by you. Sometimes the questions are provided by me. They can be provided by a book. They can be provided by some experience you have in life. It can be provided by anything or anyone. But you have to be open to dancing with the question, especially when the question makes you uncomfortable, mentally uncomfortable. Usually we got to get a little bit mentally uncomfortable before we get physically uncomfortable. Think about that. Someone presents an idea to you, like, hey, how about we do things this way? And you're like, damn, I never thought about doing things that way. And you start playing around with the thought in your mind and you start picturing what would things be like if I actually did this thing that someone just presented to me. And it makes you a little bit mentally uncomfortable first. And if you get mentally uncomfortable enough, you might say, no, I'm not going to do it. And you stick to what you've been doing, right? Or maybe it makes you mentally uncomfortable to some level to where you say, no, all right, let's try it out. Let's try it. And again, your mind has to be in a certain space in order to even be open to trying something out, even though you predict mentally that it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you. Or it could be a situation where you are growing so dissatisfied with your current situation, dissatisfaction being a form of discomfort, so dissatisfied / discomforted with your current situation that you are willing to do something that you know is going to be uncomfortable, but because you're so uncomfortable with the current situation, in other words, you're over the threshold of discomfort, that you are willing to throw away the old stuff in order to try something new. One of these things has to occur. Or another thing can occur. You look back at yesterday's episode, you can just put yourself in the frame of mind of being a soldier who's following the orders of a general. So even though you may not be that uncomfortable with the status quo, because the general told you to do something that's going to shake you out of your situation, shake you out of your current stupor / sleepwalk, you're going to do it anyway, even though the current status quo ain't that bad to you. It ain't that bad to you, but the general said we're going to do this, so you do it anyway. Now, if you can get to that level, folks, all right, that's when you can start making big changes very, very, very quickly, because you don't have to wait until you get so uncomfortable that it's time to change. See, the problem with waiting until you get so uncomfortable that you have to make a change is that human beings are extremely adaptable creatures. All of us, we are very adaptable mentally, emotionally, and physically, which means we can get adapted to something that may not be so great, and we can stay in that space and be okay in that space for a long time. So it might take years before you get uncomfortable with the current situation, until you say, all right, I got to do something about this. And then you make a move. All right, then you make the change. The thing is, 5 years went by. You could have made that move in 5 hours had you had the mindset of the general and the soldier. Okay, I'm going to make this change right now just because I said so. You don't have to be, I'm not even uncomfortable, but you know I'm going to do it anyway. See, if you can get to that frame of mind, that's when the opportunities start opening up. So if you didn't listen to yesterday's episode, make sure you go back and listen to that. Many people, folks, are very uncomfortable with and averse to change, any kind of change. So they simply don't change. Right, that's the thing. Good thing about the free will that we have, especially those of you who are residents of Western world, the Western world, especially in the United States, we have free will to pretty much live however we want. You can pretty much live any way that you want, and the government will generally prop you up, even if you ain't got much going on. So you can just never change if you don't want to. Life ain't really going to force it your hand. In most ways, life does not force our hands. Maybe in a few ways, subtle ways, or some serious ways, it will force our hands in certain situations. But for the most part, you can pretty much get by and never have your hand forced to do anything change-wise if you don't want to. And that's a trap. That's the problem. That's quicksand. You don't even realize that you're being trapped. You're like the frog uh, boiling in the water that's slowly increasing in temperature. You don't even realize that you're boiling because the water just slowly gets hotter and hotter until you're dead because the water's too hot. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is solving your unknown unknowns. Number 3, here's the solution. The solution is insight. This is something we talked about a lot here on the show. Insight is not about getting answers to your questions. That's not what it's about. Insight is about being introduced to a new set of questions, questions that open your mind to new ways of thinking and in turn, new ways of behavior. Insights are usually a result of being exposed to new ways of thinking from someone else's brain, someone who has a completely different approach from the one that you have had up to this point. Biggest challenge for people getting insight is their own ego. It's the biggest challenge to insight, folks, is ego. Let me say it again. The biggest challenge to insight is ego. Because what is insight? Insight is someone posing a new question to you that you never considered before. The biggest challenge to that is your ego of thinking, well, I don't need to address or think about or look at that question. Why? Because either you think you already know the answer, or you don't want to get uncomfortable, so you give yourself an excuse to not want to deal with it. Those are usually the 2 reasons how someone's ego gets in the way of insight. I just don't want to address that question because most people are pretty smart. When someone poses a question to you that you have never thought of and you would need to answer, you start to formulate in your mind, before you even say it, you start to formulate in your mind what the answer to the question is. And if you know the answer to the question will put you on the spot to where you might have to change in some way. Most people can do that calculation in their head before they even speak, and then they'll come up with a reason. Their ego will pop up and say, okay, let me give myself an excuse to not address that question. That's the reason why many people don't change. That right there, that's ego. That's your ego talking, getting in the way of your opportunity. The issue with this is, again, most of us have been thinking a certain type of way for so long that it's very uncomfortable to break that chain, to break that mold of the way we've been thinking. It's our own beliefs, our own ways of thinking that we've been using. We start to think that is the best or the only way to solve our problems. This is the reason why when many people, they get in a situation where they're stuck, whatever that means to you, they just double down on the things that they've been doing, which is, let me work harder, let me put in more time, let me keep thinking about this, let me just keep doing the same thing. All right, that's what most people usually do because that's the way that you've been conditioned. So you just default to what you're used to. You default to what you're comfortable with. Problem is, what you're comfortable with got you to where you are right now. Question is, where you are right now where you want to be? If the answer is yes, then keep doing it. If the answer is no, then you must be willing to get uncomfortable and allow the insight to challenge your ego, tell your ego to shut the fuck up, and be willing to open yourself to something different than what you've been doing up to this point. That's all it takes. I make it sound simple, not easy, because we are emotionally attached to our egos. We need to be. Your ego is your sense of self. You wouldn't be who you are if it wasn't for your ego. But that doesn't mean your ego should win every conversation. Sometimes your ego needs to be told to shut the hell up, like I just said. And since many people are so against changing your beliefs and your thought patterns, it's very rarely a lack of information that's hindering your person. All right, information you can get, again, online, generally virtually for free. All right, so nobody is held back. Nobody who's listening to me right now is being held back by a lack of information. All right, information is not your problem. Most people say information is their problem. That's not the problem. Most people's problem is your unwillingness to change. Because there's information out there that will tell you exactly what to do. The problem is that information would force you to do something different than what your habits have had you doing. And your discomfort with that change in behavior is why you say you don't have the right information. Now, you got the right information. It's just not the information that you like. So you're just not comfortable with that information. You're comfortable with the information that cosigns what you've been doing. You're not comfortable with the information that tells you something different than what you've been doing. That's why you don't want to apply that information. Or maybe that information has not been shared with you yet, which is, again, certain types of information can be an insight to you based on what you've been thinking about to this point. But again, you can never open yourself to that information because you wouldn't even know how to come upon the question in the first place. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? But it's not information that's in your way. All right, anybody who thinks information is in your way, no, it's not. Let's recap today's class, which is solving your unknown unknowns. Again, this is about the things that are getting in our way and holding us back, but we are not even aware that they are the actual problem. We think it's something else, and this is why we stay stuck. Number one, things that you know that you don't know. This is the stuff that you are aware that you're missing. So this is someone who says, I need to learn how to do ABC, but I don't know how to do ABC. Now, once you find out how to do ABC, what you're going to realize to your shock and dismay is that alone didn't get you where you thought it was going to get you, because that's not the real problem. It is point number two. What you don't know that you don't know. Here's where you get insight. Here's where you can make the big jumps in life, is when you identify the things that you didn't know, and you are willing to dance with them and do things that you were not even thinking that you would need to be doing in order to move yourself forward. Most people are not open to this. Most people are not comfortable with this. Most people are very resistant to this. This is the reason why many people don't change, because they are unwilling to deal with anything that they didn't come up with on their own as the reason for why they are where they are. Most people just only want to do things that they're comfortable with or that they think is the solution to their problems, when it's not even the real issue. Number three, the solution here is insight. Insight is not about getting more information. Insight is about asking better quality questions, different questions than what you've been asking, which will shock and awe your ego, shock and awe your habits, and force you into a different pattern of thinking. The challenge is most people are so hesitant to being forced into different patterns of thinking that they would rather stay where they are and not get better than to be challenged and get out of their comfort zone and position themselves to potentially improve and move themselves forward. And as long as you are stuck in that state, then you're going to be stuck in the same spot. When you get yourself over that, when you get over your own ego, you're willing to tell your ego to shut the fuck up so you can try something that's going to push you outside of the sense of self that you have up to this point. That's when you become eligible to move yourself forward. Until then, you will stay stuck in the same spot. All that said, text me at my number, 305-384-6894. Numbers down below in the description. When we start sending our messages again, you'll be getting them. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. You'll like to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can read more about our program, see more feedback and case studies of people who we worked with up to this point. And that's where you can schedule time to get on a call with us. We can talk to you about where you're at, where you're going, how we can help you, and how it works. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all